Professor Oboka. Now, Professor Wycliffe Oboka is a member of the faculty of the School of Cooperative and Community Development at the Cooperative University of Kenya in the School of Cooperatives and Community Development.
Thank you, Karibu, Mr. Wycliffe, as you come on board. Karibu sana, Professor. As he comes on stage, kindly, Okwemba, there's something that you will want to talk about or break up.
I'm looking for the position of talking. Is it here? Hapa ndio kuna network. Good morning. It's just for presentation of papers that we had received. We have received around 16 papers. Our method will be a bit different from the... So the people who are responsible, those who want to present their papers, and we have the people who will also be reviewing will move to the next room so that we can continue with that session concurrently. We hope that the rest will remain. There are not very many, so the rest will just remain here, so we just have the presenters of the papers in the next room. Thank you so much, and Prof, karibu sana. This is Okwemba. Mark the word, Mr.
Asante sana, tupigie Bwana Okwemba makofi. Bwana Okwemba and the team at KAS, thank you so much for inviting the Cooperative University of Kenya to share about resource mobilization in sports and what we see as an approach we can adapt in achieving business in sports. As has been said, my name is Oboka from the Cooperative University of Kenya. And the Cooperative University of Kenya is a public university in this republic. Goes back to 1950. And inspectors was started in Kenya way before we gained our independence. And when the country got independence, the emphasis on the role of cooperatives in the country has even deepened. As a result, cooperative development in Kenya to support the cooperative movement in Kenya and the cooperative movement in Africa. It's now I'm here to share my thoughts about resource mobilization in sports. And in other regions of the world, sports is a major is a major industry. And it's 159 billion USD in revenue. Grow by 60%, growing annually, so that by 2033, it is projected that by that time. And indications are that much of that will make a difference. The focus should be funds, and the success will really come from how much we tap the power, the resources, amountive to what we have seen globally in other areas, in other countries, in other continents. And it's estimated that records available indicate that in 2022, we were only generating around 0.79 million USDs. And compared to the projections globally, indications are that annual growth rate, compound annual growth rate between 2020 and 2027 will just be roughly 8.54. We saw that outside there globally is expected by 2033 now in Kenya we are talking about just around 8.54 are the estimates about there. So if I may ask, how does the Kenyan scenario compare with the, what is okay for us? Or we see a situation where we need to ask ourselves questions? And for me, what are the, what underlies the current performance of sports sector, sports industry in the country? And what is it that we do to make a difference within the sports industry? I have seen we have very great sports people here and academia. What do you see to be the major issues, the challenges that underlie our current performance as sports people? What would it be? Sports industry, and may want to share a second. Anyone? Yes, 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 please. We appreciate your thoughts. Claps for him as he prepares.
Can Kiprop Chemirio, the Deputy President, Kenya Judo Federation. First, I want to ask you to congratulate Kenya Judo Federation. Today we've received a letter to qualify for Olympics. One athlete.
Clap for them, please.
Okay, my thought is this. First, our speaker this morning talked of asset. Second thing is the infrastructure development, which is one-sided. And the third thing is, in this case, majorly we need to have our thoughts in resource mobilization. Because when we talk of resource mobilization, is not only for awarding our athletes and coaches and travels, but developing that athlete. So let's talk resource mobilization. That is what should be in most events which we need.
To add another question, which, because you have talked about, Kenya is very well known in the world about athletics. But when we have our competitions or our championships, almost 4 to 5% are the funds. So why do funds, they are not interested to come university? Actually, I think there is on how you can do research and you come up with the solution so that we can have funds. And you know, the more we have funds, thank you.
Clap for him, please. And your name? The name again?
I'm Patrick Macau.
Patrick Macau. Clap for the champion.
Former world record of the marathon.
Clap for the champion, please. Lastly.
But have a challenge that we experience in Kenya. and some of the African countries. The challenge is very simple: how revenue. All of us, including Bwana Macau here, we comment on the resources allocated to us because we rely on government institutions or corporate entities to fund sports as a social good, but not as a...
Thank you. Let us clap for them, please. And I really appreciate the thoughts, really highlights critical issues, problems, challenges facing. A number of challenges come out. And they really speak to what the three have indicated. And or with less attention to where the biggest resource that will transform the industry lie. How do we get funds? Because funds are the major resource, a big resource. They are supporting and enriching we are not creative enough to see how do we tap into that. So this to speak to the question of how do we get funds into our sports and generate we cannot get from anywhere from the fan base. And we are talking about that the essence of adapting, innovating, and focusing on the fan experience to realize the full potential of our sports in the coming years. And what are we? The most successful approach to resource mobilization in sports, and therefore turning around model in sports resource mobilization. So 1 minute just to say what a cooperative model is, so that when we are selling to meet common economic, social, cultural needs and the aspiration crisis. How did the concept of cooperative start? And we made it and come up to see how can they provide a solution in the sporting industry in the contemporary world. Pioneers. And how did they start the first cooperative? That was during the time of industrialization, and there was a lot of exploitation. Even had to have 8-year children working so that the family can be able to make up, to make ends meet. And the industrialists had organized schools there, you have a house there, you have shops there. So when he pays you the small amount of money, he pays you from point A, he knows you'll go to his shop run by the industries, you'll pay in the industries, so by the end of the day, the worker in that environment will get away with nothing. He paid you back. So they looked at the exploitation, and therefore they decided to set up their own shop. And in that shop, what it would mean that when they are paid, the money that the industrialists used to get back, they will use to run the shop, sell to each other what they need, and eventually the surplus is given back to the members. And that is how the cooperative started. Now, as they have evolved, cooperatives are run on 7 principles, as we can see. open voluntary membership, demographic member control, member economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training and information, cooperation among cooperatives, and lastly, concern. Can we demonstrate that cooperatives already are making a difference? And yes, we have statistics that indicate just how much industry we can demonstrate evidence. In 2020, the number of cooperatives in Kenya were to buy houses. And by that time, the number of members in cooperatives was 14 million. It has grown to slight. And that year, they were mobilizing 7.32 billion, which slightly more than 30% of the national saving in the country. So let us look at cooperatives and what they are doing and ask ourselves, how much that we just need to tap into this and we make a difference. Now, when we are saying that we can adapt the cooperative, be able to show that some kind of a model that is similar to that works elsewhere. And yes, we have that. And there are cases, therefore, was collectively created, is collectively owned, and it's run by funds. And if you remember, the principle of cooperatives, it's run here on what we are saying, one member, one vote. Very similar to what cooperative principle, very successful. You'll find that fund ownership is a very popular structure, even in Spain, to the extent that just coming up, I say, like it is the case in England, that you come up and you own a club, they are very reluctant to that. So they really emphasize fund ownership on the structure and model of cooperatives. Even in South America, you'll find that, for example, in Uruguay, 11 out of the 16 teams in the Premier Division are owned on that model. Now, we could say so much about success associated with the and management of clubs on the cooperative model. And one such a good case, we have already said in sports. So when you look at Spain, for example, one of the most successful football club, Barcelona, with that percent owned by its fund. The funds are called, known as socios. It's run by roughly sources, that is members, and a total revenue at 800 million. Are we collecting per year in the country? And how can we in Barcelona are able to mobilize in any given year? Again, in the same country, and actually when you say fund owned, we are saying it's run and managed on a cooperative model. And it's run on a model known as the sources system, and estimated 8 43 million euros. How does it compare on the collective taxes we collect in sports industry? Probably the question will be, how is the policy, legal, regulatory policy for cooperative development 2020, it envisions and provides for a possibility of cooperatives going out of the traditional cooperative realm, because ordinarily we talk about agricultural cooperatives, we talk about housing cooperatives, but it has provided for opening up space for cooperatives to form in sectors that were not traditionally known for cooperatives. And it says new initiatives and innovative ventures are required for cooperative societies to expand into emerging high growth areas and partnership. And sports industry is that one of the high growth areas. It also adds that opportunities for growth and sustainability of the cooperative movement will further be realized by leveraging on the following growth areas. And they talk about youth and women, special interest groups, environment, health, ICT, and new forms of cooperatives. And those new forms of cooperatives we are proposing will emerge and should emerge in the sporting industry. So, as we seek to conclude, cooperatives are a major driver of socioeconomic development of cooperatives by UN. And this is to showcase the enduring global impact corporates have had everywhere. The is cooperatives build a better world. Cooperatives build a better world. Cooperatives can build a better world through the sports industry. So what are we saying? We are saying that we need to promote cooperative business model for resource mobilization in sports to realize the goal of sports business. 2, we are saying that constitutions of individual sports and federation so that it allows for that kind of scenario. And again, we have seen very successful sports people after sports, after some time, you find that the economy find that they are struggling. So we need to give them vehicles through which they can continuously invest and that meet their needs and in different sports. So that is our thinking. And sectors to apply the cooperative movement to make a difference in those sectors. We will be very happy to partner as you think about the cooperative business model for a very thriving sporting industry. So thank you so much for listening to me.
round of applause for Professor Wycliffe Oboke. He told me that he's going to set a new record here for taking the least time to speak. And he has done so. So we want to see whether the next speaker will also better the time, take the least time. So at this point, I wanted to invite Professor Evans Basweti, who's a professor of agronomy, to come and talk to us about developing regional hubs. He's representing the Professor Dr. Nathan Ogechi, who's the Vice Chancellor of KISI University. Welcome, Professor Evans Basweti. He told me he wants to be the next governor of wherever he's coming from. I don't know. I don't know if you will convince the voters. We come from the same county. Yes. Thank you. Mimi ndio utakuwa kwanza kuomba kura.
Asante sana. Thank you, thank you. Habari zenu? Yes, my name is, as you have been told, is Evans Abenga Basweti. I'm from KISI University. I'm a professor of agronomy, agriculture. He could not make it here because of other pressing commitments. Before I give his presentation, let me talk briefly about KISI University. KISI University is one of the most popular universities in Kenya in terms of student prevalence. We have 80,000. So we are doing very well, but the area of a man from KISI by the name Nyantika Mayoro was the first to put Kenya map in the world. And we also have others. We have what it takes to nurture the young talents, because for us to have, in agriculture, we have what is known as factors of production. What are these factors that will produce a good spokesperson, sportsman, or sportswoman? Of course, we have the first one is genetics, the genes, and the environment, including what other factors together, manage them together very well, organize them well, then we shall have a good people coming from KISI region. You know, the talk is about establishing KISI region as a hub for sports and talent development. The talents are there. We have young people, and we need